You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network. Visit pencilandpaperproductions.podbean.com to find more great podcasts.
I'm Katrina, and I love anime.
I'm Stephen, and I'm aware of anime.
But what if that affection could rub off?
Perhaps that excitement in her eyes got me curious.
I could offer up some solid anime.
I could give them a watch, just to see what all the fuss is about.
And maybe, just maybe,
I could learn to love anime too.
Welcome to Inspired by a Weeaboo. Welcome back, my Weeaboo family. I am your host, Katrina, and with me is my husband, Stephen. We just finished episode 4 of Death Parade. Well, Stephen, that one kind of was a little bit different too.
Yeah, it went back to the darker places.
It did.
It's called Death Arcade, and immediately upon the start of the episode, we already know that we're dealing with some, at least one unsavory character, because she's already trying to find her way out. She's not, I'm assuming they've already had the discussion about why they're there, and she's just like, nope, we got to get out of here. You know, we're going to get out. And her name is Misaki, and the other guy's name is Yusuke.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just making sure I'm reading that right. But anyway, she's trying to find a way out, and he's just kind of moping along with her. He's like, well, whatever you want. And then so she drags him off into the bathroom, and then she's like, I know what this is. This is reality television. That's what's going on here. We're on a reality show. And you kind of wonder, why in the hell would she go there? And he's like, well, okay, why do you think that? Apparently she was a celebrity.
Yes.
Back in her heyday. Or at least, I guess she has always been as such, because they never really alluded to the fact that she never has been. So she was a celebrity. And so she thinks this is all some elaborate ruse. They're on a reality show, hidden camera show, whatever. And, that's what all this is about. And he's like, if you say so. And clearly he doesn't know who she is. Like he has no recollection of ever seeing her. But when you get into his story, I can kind of see why, I don't really feel like, even if, she would have had to have been such a major star that she would have been all over the place. But he seemed a little self-contained in his own world. So.
Yeah.
But, she doesn't want to. She's just like, nah, this is what this is. So we're going to go back out there and we're going to give them a show. And so they go back out there. They're presented with the red button to find their game. She smacks that button, and they are presented with arcade machines. So they're like, oh, okay, so this will be kind of interesting. So they tell them all they got to do, fight 2 rounds, and whoever wins, that's it. Usual basic simplistic way of presenting the games, which, I guess me personally, if I was just win 2 rounds and whoever wins, that's it. I'd want to know what the prize is.
Yeah.
No one ever really questions that. I guess they automatically assume it's life or death, or maybe not even in this case. They're just like, oh, so maybe there'll be a prize or something like that, since they think they're on a reality show.
Yeah.
Because Yusuke, I never feel like he accepts the fact that it's a reality show, but I think he just goes along with it. He's just like, okay, it sounds reasonable enough, sure.
He is younger than her.
Yeah.
Like, that part is, pointed out. So
he just kind of like, okay, whatever you say. So they sit down at the machines and, select your fighter. And they realize pretty quick that the only fighter they get to choose is themselves. Yes. So they are playing as themselves in the game. And when they look at their stats and their move sets and everything, it's a reflection of them in a manner of speaking. So a move that they have or something like that reflects some part of them in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so Yusuke's looking at it and is like, oh, I'm like a loser, this is terrible, it's like, this isn't me.
Mm-hmm.
And of course she looks at it and she's like, oh, look at that. And she had like a little umbrella and she's like, oh, I remember that umbrella. Oh, that's so awesome. So she's kind of getting into it thinking that, this will be great. So they start fighting, and just kind of playing as is and whatnot. And Yusuke clearly is the video gamer here.
Oh, yeah.
Because he mops the floor with her pretty good. And upon losing that first round, Misaki has this memory come back, or several memories, to be honest, where she remembers a life of abuse with, seems to be boyfriends or husbands, so you see her being, enthralled with a guy, and then he eventually winds up smacking her, hitting her, and then we see another guy, and then we see kids involved.
Yes.
She's getting smacked around, hit again, and she just looks like she's had this very abusive private life that doesn't really reflect who she is on TV, I guess.
Yes.
So she's hidden these little dark secrets, so to speak. And so I guess with that remembrance of that memory and that life, she storms back off to the bathroom, grabs Yusuke, and is like, hey, we're going to go back. And she's convinced that, I guess that the best way to create better television is, hey, why don't you let me win this round? Why don't you let me win? And he's like, what for? And she's like, I make good television. Like, come on, let me win this one, and everything will be fine. And so he's just like, okay. He doesn't seem like he's all that excited about it, but he's like, sure, why not? So he goes back, or they kind of both go back out there, and we start to see them fighting again. And midway through the fight, Yusuke is letting her, I guess, pretty much take him down pretty good. And then I guess he has this moment, is like, nah, I'm not going to do that. So he starts turning it around. Doesn't win, but it's more like, I guess he doesn't just want to take it, lie down and take it.
Didn't want it, like he said, to seem so obvious.
Yeah.
So.
Turn your mic. It's not going to pick you up if you're doing like that.
I thought it was. No. Okay. My headphones are acting up.
Damn it.
There we go.
But yeah, there was so he starts to turn it around and starts to wail on her, but I don't know if we saw it before now. I can't remember if we saw it before now, but Deckham's holding something in his hands, like a little device.
He pulls it out of his pocket, and this is the first time that we see that device.
Okay, so I'm assuming this is going to be something that we see later on.
I feel like you see it with another character, but I can't remember if Deckham gets another one or not.
Okay. But he pulls out this device, and as Yusuke is trying to turn the tide on his fight, Deckham presses the button, and Yusuke's arcade controller, the little top on it. If you're familiar with old arcade cabinets where they got the little ball joystick, the ball pops off.
Yes.
So he goes and chases after it, and of course that kind of turns the tide in her favor. Now, the black-haired girl, she notices this, and she's not keen on it. She's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And he's just like, sometimes you just gotta give him a little push. And she's like, you can't do that. You can't manipulate. You can't interfere. She doesn't seem very happy about it. But
no,
I think
she's not.
But I do kind of understand as the episode goes on why he did it. Because I think once you hit the overarching point of this theme, it's a necessity.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that toward the end. But I think when that happens, we get a little glimpse into Yusuke's life.
Yes.
And he's he seemed to have had a really shitty childhood. His parents were garbage. You know, they were telling him he's worthless.
His mom.
His mom. Okay, his mom is garbage, and she's telling him, you know, you're no good. You should never had you and whatnot, and just shitting all over him. Then you see that I guess they got a divorce. Mm-hmm. Somehow he wound up being adopted. I don't really see where they.
I don't know if they ever actually make it clear that he's adopted, because in a later flashback, the mother, who, you know, I always assumed it was his father and he just remarried.
Okay.
So, I mean, this woman practically raises him.
Yeah.
Because when his parents get a divorce, he is kind of young. And, you know, she comes into play, and you can see, like, the resentment he has towards her, even though she seems to be this very kind, loving person. And she makes a comment to his father. I'd say he's probably mid-teens at this point. That she has one wish, and that it's that she hopes that Yusuke will one day be close enough to call her mom. Yeah. So she loved him. Mm-hmm. You know.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think about his father getting remarried.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I always assumed that it was his father, because just kind of the reaction that he, you know, had was kind of like, you know, like he hoped for that too, but it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't a exchange like, I hope one day he calls us his parents. It was just, I hope one day he calls me mom.
Right.
So I always assumed that his father just got remarried, and he just had resentment towards her, and I'd probably say just older women in general, because of, you know, the trauma that his mom put him through.
Right.
But very sad.
Yeah. I mean, and as this kind of progresses, like once she wins that fight, you know, they run back off again and try to understand what's going on, because she's starting to feel that, you know, it's not a reality show. There's something else going on.
Yes.
You know, so she gets real. But it is funny that you kind of bring that up, like his I guess, reflection of older women.
Yes.
Because now she is really kind of in that position to be that person for him. You know, that person that is hateful and mean and manipulative and, you know, because she is being manipulative. She may not be hateful to him, but she is just like, hey, you're going to do this.
Well, she's using a lot of freaking sex appeal on a young man, too, because I would say he's probably in high school, because I can't imagine he was graduated. He still seemed pretty young.
College, maybe.
Yeah, college, maybe.
Because it doesn't look too young, but
he's definitely
a very young man.
Yeah, definitely not as old as she is. So,
but yeah, they, you know, I guess at that point she's just like, hey, we're going to find out about this. So she goes back out and asks Deckham. She's like, you know, what's the deal here? What's going on? And, you know, he pretty much lays it out to her. This is not a TV show.
No.
You know, this is a game you got to play. Yes. And she's not having it. She's just like, no. And then, of course, the visions of the mannequins kind of come back. So that obviously puts her into this, we're going to die, they're going to kill us, you know, mentality. So she starts to panic. But
she does have an outburst about how she doesn't think she can win against him because he's obviously a gamer. Mm-hmm. And when they sat back down to play, of course, you know, Yusuke is wiping the floor with her again. Yeah. So.
And it was funny, too, because Deckham, when she was sitting there going about, you know, when she pointed that out, I was like, I can't win. It's not fair. And he's just like, well, when have you ever played fair? And I was like, ooh, we're throwing shade. Mm-hmm. You know, so that's, you know, reflecting something in her personality or who she is. Then as they start to play or whatever, it's getting real intense because both want to win and they're willing to do whatever it takes. She uses a special move which whips out all 5 of her kids.
Yes.
And even in that moment, you get more of a sense of who she is and how she reacts to her kids, because they start attacking. She's like, oh, my kids are here to save me. And then I guess they're not doing well enough. And she's like, oh,
don't do much damage.
Yeah, and they're just like, oh, you're worthless, all of you. And except for the one little one. And she's like, oh, my baby, he's going to do it. And But obviously it doesn't really turn the tide all that much. So that was kind of interesting,
Yeah.
that we saw that part of her because she treats them like she treats everybody else, just the same. Yeah. How she's been treated, I guess, in the same way. But Decim interferes yet again, popping off her controller ball or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what you call that. Joystick.
The top of the joystick.
Ball, whatever.
The part you really hold on to because it's kind of hard to play an arcade game without that little ball on there.
Yeah. And then, the black-haired girl, she gets, you got to stop this. And he's like, they've got to, there's no other way they're going to get this through their head, unless I do a little pushing. And what I found interesting about it, too, is, I guess, again, I guess I don't want to touch on that right now. We'll get into the theme, because there's a theme here. I was pretty aware of it early on, but I wanted to make sure, because I almost questioned it toward the end, but I'm pretty sure I know what the theme was. But when she goes after her ball, the match isn't over, but yet she goes to Yusuke in anger and starts smashing his face into the screen of his arcade machine, just because she's losing. So she's being abusive to him, taking her anger out on him. She knocks him out cold. And of course she's like, oh, apologetic. What have I done? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And, it's just too late. It's too bad. And then she's like, what do I do? And Decim's like, you got to finish. You got to finish the game. It's like, I don't really care, what happens, but game's got to be finished, period.
Yeah.
So she goes back and sits down at the machine and starts, wailing on the non-playing Yusuke.
Very slowly, I might add. She's just like giving him
little
really
taps.
Yeah. Like she's kind of broken a little at this point and just, hitting him just, kind of small smacks and taking down very little health.
Yeah. So as Yusuke's lying on the floor, we start to dive into him and where he's at.
Yes.
And we see more of the, kind of going back to his parents, being shit parents, but then we focus a little bit more on his adoptive mom because, adopted makes more sense. And we see how much she loves him. We see how much she tries to take care of him and do things for him and everything. And, it kind of revitalizes him in a way.
Yes.
So he wakes back up and he jumps back to the arcade machine and starts, taking charge and fighting. And then he uses a special move that's his mom's and starts wailing on the woman. And he's like, take that. And then finally, they're both down to the one last hit and they're both gone, so what's going to happen? So they start rushing toward each other, and then it kind of fades into their video game characters and to them bum rushing each other, fists clenched, and they're going to just knock the hell out of each other. And then at that point we see what happened.
Yes.
What happened to them. So with Misaki, she was apparently talking to, I'm assuming it was her assistant.
No, it was her manager.
Or her manager? Yeah, because she did mention her manager in passing early on in the episode. So she's talking to her manager about something that she was trying to do for her. She screwed it up. Well, I won't say screwed up. She did something not the way Misaki wanted it to be done.
Yes.
So she bitch slapped the hell out of her, and she's like, you're worthless, bye.
Yeah.
And then she picks up her phone. She's like, oh, my kids, and she's just turned it around no, I just beat the shit out of her, but it's fine. We'll go back to this. And then her manager, I'm going to assume she's had this happen one too many times.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't imagine this was a one-time thing and she just snapped. This was a constant habit of Misaki. So she's like, no, you know what? I'm done with this. And she gets up and she strangles the shit out of her, which you imagine at some point someone's going to be tired of being slapped around. And you're like, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done here. And then we cut to Yusuke, who we see him playing a video game. And he just I don't know. It's like I guess he was just so down in the dumps. Now, granted, in the game, I guess, and this was one of those situations where you kind of feel like it was reflective of how he was feeling at the time. Mm-hmm. Like he didn't win a game. It was like game over, and he just seemed so depressed and down about it. And then he just kind of looks out the window, and then next thing you know, he's taking a dive out of it. Of course, we don't really see it, but we kind of see it from his perspective.
Yes.
So he committed suicide. He was done. And we kind of go back to the game, and they have both clocked each other at the same time, so it's double KO.
Mm-hmm.
And they're down for the count. And then they both kind of shake it off, realize they're both dead,
mm-hmm.
and are trying to make sense of everything.
Yes.
But they both have this moment of clarity where they're trying to... like in the case of Yusuke, he's trying to understand why.
Yeah.
Like, why did I do this? Why couldn't I accept my stepmother? Why was it always this and this? Why did I do this to myself? She was always good. Like, he finally understood what she was trying to do for him, and he wouldn't have any part of it. And so he was really struggling with the idea of, why would I do this? Why did I do this to myself? Why did I do this to her? Mm-hmm. Because he did. There was a shot where they showed her standing over him just in tears, shouting his name. So, I mean, he hurt her just as much as he killed himself,
Yes.
And then with Misaki, she did not want to bite down on this bullet.
She did not. She, like we said before, she had 5 children, mm-hmm. and they definitely varied in age.
Yeah.
Because the youngest was a small baby.
Yeah.
And the oldest looked like he could probably be close to Yusuke's age.
Mm-hmm.
And she just, she loses her shit, and she, keeps saying she needs to be back, with her baby. She needs to go back to her baby. Mm-hmm. She needs to be there for her children and everything. And
she even goes after Decim at this point. She's going after him. And of course, he whips out his super webs or whatever you want to call them. Like, I got you. Whips her around. That's something he did to one guy in the first episode. Takashi, yeah. He held him back from beating the shit out of his wife.
Yeah. So
he did that to her and whipped her around and was like, nah, you're not going to touch me. And of course, she goes into bargaining mode. She's like, I'll do anything. Just let me go back to my kids. Please, 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 let me go back to my kids.
Very heartbreaking.
Yeah, which you could understand in that situation. I mean, but she's done some terrible shit.
Well, they never really show her doing anything terrible to her children.
That's
other
true.
Than that comment that she makes, in the video game that they're useless. But even when, she was talking on the phone after she slapped the manager, she was apologizing to her child because I guess they had plans.
Mm-hmm.
And because the manager scheduled something, it messed with those plans, and that's why she got mad.
Yeah.
So I feel like she really did love her children. It was just she had such a shit life, and everything was finally going right because she, got that show where it was like a reality show with her and her children. So just to, I guess, realize everything is over with, and now she's left these 5 children all alone because she died and everything. I mean, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can kind of get where she's coming from, just trying to not want to accept she's dead.
Yes.
But essentially they...
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but with that and her crying and everything, we see a side of Decim that we have not seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he releases her from the strings and she kind of falls forward and he's holding on to her.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, you could think, well, he's just trying to restrain her. But then Yusuke walks up and he starts crying and everything, and about how he's remorseful about what happened and he shouldn't have done it and how could he have done that and everything. And Decim actually embraces both of them in a hug and tells them that they did the best that they could.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of comforts them, which we haven't seen before.
No, yeah.
So it was a nice side to Decim, whether he meant it actually, you know,
in earnest or just to placate human behavior.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he does that, and then they go in their elevators, and I was curious which way it would go, you know, because you always hear these ideas about suicide as eternal damnation, you know, and even with her situation being abused, but she was also abusive in a way.
Yes.
I didn't know. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure which way this would go because they're both kind of this gray area of life. But Yusuke got redeemed and Misaki went to the void. So it was like, okay. I mean.
And I feel like if she would. Because when Decim pulls out the little remote and the black-haired lady sees it and they kind of have their little squabble about it, the black-haired lady ends up taking it from Decim and smashing it on the ground because it upset her so much. And that's when Misaki actually starts beating Yusuke's face into the arcade game. And I feel like if she hadn't have snapped, if it hadn't have been for that remote, you know, they would have never seen that side of her. So you saw her snap and how horrible of a person she could be. And I feel like even though her life was messed up and everything else, she did kind of deserve to go to the void because, I mean, if they hadn't already been dead, she'd have probably just killed Yusuke
for sure.
over a video game. So I feel like, you know, it was fitting for her.
Yeah.
And
I mean, fair
as
enough.
sad as it was, because obviously, I mean, you know, she just wanted to go back to her children, but it wasn't until, you know, her dying that she realized how, I guess, special they were to her.
Yeah. And it was a little too late, you know, at that point. So I kind of felt like they both deserved what they got. I mean, the boy had just had a really rough childhood.
Yeah.
And he just kind of was in this depressed state all of his life, so I guess it just kind of caught up with him.
And even when they were playing the game, he never came off malicious.
No, never.
No, I mean, he was just going with it and playing the game and doing what he was supposed to do. And even after she beat the shit out of him, he got back up and played the game. He never put hands on her. He never screamed or yelled at her or anything like that. He just got up and played the game, and when it was all over, he was the most composed out of the both of them. Even him crying and being remorseful, he wasn't angry at Decim or angry at the situation. He was angry at himself.
Right. So the theme of this episode, from what I've noticed, would be, I feel like it's denial, because they were denied happiness. They, in turn, denied happiness for themselves because he denied his mother. She denied...
And himself.
And himself, yeah. There was a lot of that being played here. Now, like I said, I almost kind of doubted it for a moment when she started bargaining. But then I was like, no, this is really about denial for everything in their lives, everything they've been denied. At the beginning, like I said, I already kind of got this sense because she was already trying to get out. So she was just like, I'm not having it. I'm denying everything around me. You know, this isn't happening. So I was already trying to convince herself it's something else. So it was like this. I feel like this was about denial more than anything. But in saying that makes me think that we're going to see other bits throughout the episodes, because the 5 stages of grief that you get through death. We've already had acceptance. We've now seen denial. And then we've got bargaining, which, you know, we haven't seen yet. I'm trying to think of what the others are. So just sadness, which I guess you could kind of go back to the first episode.
Yeah.
You know, if you wanted to. What's the other one? There's 5.
There's anger.
Anger.
Yes.
So, yeah, that could go back to the first one.
Denial. Was it anger, denial, acceptance?
No, acceptance is the last one.
Oh, okay.
So anger, denial, bargaining. Oh, gosh. Well, we're going to have to look this up.
Yeah, we're going to have to look up the 5 stages of grief.
Because they're all, I mean, I feel like they're going to be present here. About a show about death, they should be.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that we're seeing that within the episode. So it's not a surprise to me. I'm really appreciating how they are forming episodes around those themes, those ideas that come with the 5 stages of grief. So I like that.
Well,
I'm gonna look that shit up right now because I want to know. I can't let it go. Yeah, so just hang tight with me, people. That's why we got phones nowadays,
right?
You know.
Of course, my phone is with a toddler. So
see. Now I'm gonna get all scientific on you. It's the Kubler-Ross model.
Okay then.
Oh. Yeah, so acceptance was last is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So I don't think we've hit depression yet. We saw a bit of bargaining here, but I don't feel like that's the overarching theme. I want to see a full episode that's all about trying to bargain your way out.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So, and I know that we said in episode 1, I'm pretty sure I touched on a theme, but I don't think it was anger. But it could very well be in that vein because they were some angry sons of bitches.
Well,
and granted, episode 2
was.
Yeah, and granted, in episode 2, I know it said it was about perception, which wasn't necessarily a stage of grief, but
oh no, but that one wasn't technically. It's.
I mean, it does.
It went with the first one.
Yeah,
I mean,
it does. It does work on the idea of death as itself. Like, how do you perceive death?
Yeah.
So, there's themes here. I love that.
Yay!
I love themes. I don't want just some randomness. And again, this episode 2 could also work in the same vein of. I mean, these really could. You could pluck the basic core ideas of these and make them into Twilight Zone episodes. Or whatever is popular at the time. I mean, they really could stand alone as their own thing.
Yeah.
Because they have such strong... I mean, you could probably build on them just a little bit, but I don't know if it would be necessary. Like, if you really wanted to feel more pity for them, then you really dig in deep. So you'd have to stretch it out to an hour.
Even with that one, with... Misaki being the angry kind of bitch of the episode, which I mean, from like the start of the episode, you don't like her.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. You know nothing about her, but you already know you don't freaking like her. But at that ending, when she's crying and begging to go back to her children, like, you feel pity for her.
Yeah.
Like, it's saddening. It's heartbreaking. It's like, you know, even though, she probably deserves what she's getting, it's still not fair to her children.
Yeah.
Just like what Yusuke did wasn't fair to his mom.
That's true.
So, I mean, that's one thing, you know, people always say is when people say like suicide and stuff like that is a selfish, you know, act. It is, in a way. I mean...
Because you are... There, I guess we want to touch on that too, because I've said it takes a lot. I mean, I really feel like it would have to take a lot for someone to just say, I am done. I mean, you have to have like nothing left to lose, and you know it. Because you hear people say that all the time, I got nothing else to lose. But I mean, you would have to absolutely know it and say, I have nothing else here on this earth to live for.
Like, I've heard people say that, you know, people who commit suicide are cowards. And I've never felt that way because I don't think even at my darkest moment I would ever be able to do that to myself because I would be a coward in the sense of not being able to go through with it. And there's been plenty of people who have been like that, who are just too scared. Like, they have those urges and they want to do that, but they're just too scared to go through with it. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's brave or anything like that. It's a very sad thing to happen to people.
And at the same time, there is a selfishness to it because you're not thinking, if you have family, if you have people who care about you,
Yes.
I guess it could also be a perception of that as well, because if you have people who care about you who would be heartbroken if you did that to yourself, then it is selfish to do that.
Yes.
But if you don't, if you literally have nobody, then I can't see it being selfish, because nobody gives a damn about you, and you're aware of that, and you're just like, well, I'm going to help society. That's one less person anyone's got to worry about. But so I think it's a matter of perception. But yeah, being a coward, no. I'm too selfish to kill myself, because I can always think of 100 things that I want to live for.
But it's definitely a deep episode, and this one always made me emotional anyway, just from her being a parent aspect, and even him being, the child of, a woman, and just, because he realizes that he was selfish.
Yeah.
And that was his mistake, and he was so remorseful about it.
Now, that was one thing that I also noticed that it just kind of popped into my head. They didn't die together unless they died at the same time together.
They had to have died at the same time.
Okay.
So I guess you could think, they had zero ties to one another, unlike the first two episodes. So it was just these two people that, happened to die at the exact same moment. One committing suicide, and then the other,
Yeah, and I think that's what made this a little bit more interesting as well, is them not having ties. So you're not trying to dig for, because even still, when I was looking to find a tie, it didn't initially come to me like, oh, well, they're connected somehow. It was just like, okay, two strangers, but they do have a tie from an emotional perspective.
Well, see, I was even going to say they have a tie in the fact that it's a mother and a son.
Yeah.
They might not be, obviously they're not, related.
Yeah, they're not related.
But it's just the fact that she is a mother to children and has, sons, and then he is a son, to his mom.
And she's very reflective of his mom, like his original mom.
Yes, she's very reflective of his biological mom.
Why would I say original mom? Like,
but it's just that, I guess that is their tie. That is their, he has to be probably, again, the same age as her oldest son, from at least the pictures that you see. And just the way that she treats him kind of makes you think, well, put yourself in that position where he could be your son. He's that same age,
right.
as your child and stuff like that. But yet she treats him so poorly. She uses sex appeal on him and everything else. And it's kind of disturbing, because he's not old enough to, for that to be happening.
I still feel like he's a little older than you seem to think he is.
I
mean,
I would say probably
style.
early
he
20s.
Like he could be 20 years old at least.
Yeah, 20s still. She's got to be in her 40s, at least mid 40s.
Yeah, that's fine, but I'm just saying, I don't feel like he's
well, he's not a child, but no. Still, he's legal age, but still not.
Yeah, okay, fine.
She doesn't need to be using sex appeal on somebody who's probably just a few years older than her kid. But I don't know. Like I said, it's a very emotional episode, and you feel sorry for both of them. And I guess I support Decim on, her going to the void and him being reincarnated, because even though he did what he did, wasn't malicious.
Yeah.
And with her, she might not have ever hurt her children, but she hurt people around her. Like, even in the flashback scenes, there's at least one person who seems to be constant other than her, children, and it's a blonde-haired man who am gonna guess was her husband. And then she was bringing all these other men. So she seemed to not only be having an affair, but, he was beating her, which probably caused her to have the affair. And it was just this endless, vicious cycle of her doing these things, him doing these things, and then the children being a part of it. And even when they show the clip of the TV show and all her children staying there, the only ones that are smiling besides her are the younger ones. The older ones just kind of look like they don't want to be there. They don't want to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. And I guess you could take away that maybe they just want their mom. They don't want, all the spotlight and everything else. They just want their mom and her love and her to care for them. But she's more worried about being, a big celebrity and all this kind of stuff, even though she wants to give them everything. But she's not doing it for the motherly reasons that she tries to tell herself she's doing it for.
And I even think that was apparent when they were showing that clip. She was like, everything was going to be fine. For whatever reason, this reality show she was going to be doing was just going to fix everything. Yeah. And their lives are going to be better. And like you said, the kids probably did not want that life. They were just like, okay, we're here.
Yeah.
But her perception of that was, I don't know. She's not even realizing how stupid it is.
No,
how ridiculous the idea is.
And I guess that's where she's very vain. Mm-hmm. She has, I would imagine you could probably tie in like the 7 deadly sins through these two.
Maybe,
but she's very vain. She's she's just not a good person at her core. Mm. She might have been at one point in time, but not not anymore. Yeah. And that's definitely made fact when she hurts Yusuke for no reason.
Right.
So, overall, she got what she deserved, even though it's sad. But it's just one of those, really pulls at your heartstrings type episode.
But a good deep episode. We actually discussed it a lot more than we did the last one because there are a lot of layers to peel back on this one. So that was pretty good.
There were.
And it was still 23 minutes long. With credit.
Right. So. For such short episodes, they pack so much into it, but it doesn't feel over crammed. You get all the information you need. Mm-hmm. Whether it be from their flashbacks, yes, we don't know every single little aspect about her life, but we know enough. And I feel like that's the awesome thing about this anime is it's not just a whole bunch of shit thrown into it. Oh, excuse me. It's, you get everything you need out of it. Yeah. It explains everything you need to know. And you don't have to have a big drawn out, hour episode or anything like that. You get everything that you could possibly want out of it.
Sure, yeah.
So
it's encapsulated very nicely.
Yes. Written very well.
Yep.
So props to you, Death Parade.
And your writers, I would say.
Yes.
Who we don't know who were the writers of this episode, but it's fine. It's fine.
I'm sure if we did some research, we would know. Yeah,
but we're not going to do that. Not today.
No.
But that was it. That was Death Arcade.
Yes.
Again, if you like what you're hearing, you can be sure to let all your friends know. If you got anime fans out there, let them know to find us on the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network, found on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcast, and even on youtube.com/pencilpaperproductions if that's where you prefer.
Yes, and if you have any animes out there that, you want to throw out to us or anything like that you don't think, or you don't know, obviously, if I've seen or anything, but you think, just based off of episodes now or later episodes that you think I'll enjoy.
Maybe you want us to analyze them like we're doing this.
Yes. If you think it's deep and just, very story driven and everything, or maybe it's just lighthearted and fun, because right now Death Parade is kind of freaking depressing. So we've had one happy episode so far, but that's okay because I still love it. It is still one of my favorite animes. But yeah, just, shoot us a message or something. Let us know and we'll definitely look at it. I'll definitely look at it. I'll probably actually watch it before we actually have it on the podcast and everything. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know. I might want to do one where I'm just going into it blind and, kind of be in your shoes and see, what I think of it and everything else. So
that would be fun.
Yes. But, like always, much love, my weeaboos, and we will see you next time.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.